I always want parents to remember that you are the expert of your child. You know them better than anyone else on the planet.
Whether you're raising kids, mentoring teens, or just trying to show up better in your community, this episode is for you. It's practical, it's powerful, and will change the way you think about friendship, belonging, and the kind of impact you're already capable of having. We talk about why we're lonelier than ever, even in a crowded room, how to create connection in everyday moments, and what it means to be the kind of person who sees others and helps them feel seen. Scharman, welcome to the show.
It is so good to be here.
I've been excited personally because I'm a new mom of a teen. I have a 13-year-old as of last month, and I'm obsessed with her. She's the coolest human, and I'm so proud of who she's becoming and how she is. And so this conversation for those reasons is personally really interesting for me. But also, you are an expert, both lived and what you've studied, on what's happening right now, like the heated discussions happening around most people's tables and in most universities in these age groups. You are right in the thick of. So it feels so timely and important. And just in the little that I've known you, which already feels like, oh my gosh, I just love this woman. You're coming at it from a really beautiful, faith-filled, hopeful perspective. And I think that's also needed right now. So I'm so excited to chat today.
Thank you. First, I want to say this. You call me an expert, and I am just going to humbly say to you, I tell every single parent, you are the expert of your 13-year-old daughter. You're her expert. I may know human development, which actually you do too. I maybe have studied children and teens and young adults for a long time. So I can bring some of those principles in and the research and best practices, but I always want parents to remember that you are the expert of your child. You know them better than anyone else on the planet. And so I really feel like as parents, we need to remember that, and we can take things that we read and hear and best practices and then really lean into our intuition and as the Holy Spirit guides what our children need, because you're her expert. So I really love that.
It's such a great reminder to start out with. As you're listening to this whole conversation, those of you listening in, also trust your own heart. I think the nice thing about research and about lived experience in a practice is you see patterns and you see themes. Even having worked now at a school for 3 years and my child development background, you can start to see what's normal and maybe what's abnormal and what typically at this age these things happen.
That's right.
And then you also do want parents to say, and you were there in the evening or late at night when something feels off, or when you really have these questions that say, I know this doesn't even make sense, but
that's right.
This is what's in my heart. And then also the other reminder I would add to that, as we're adding lists to think about before people even hear what we are going to talk about today, is also, man, isn't it nice to partner with God? To say
really
even
is.
Things that I've lived with these kids for as long as they've been alive. And there's also things I don't know that are happening, that they're experiencing, that a friend said at school. And so keep the line of communication open with your own heart and with God.
That's
to
right.
Say, what am I missing?
I could not parent without him.
Amen.
And learning to trust that intuition, those feelings is really key to solid parenting. And with that, I think we want to be very careful to not overlook, because intervening young and helping our children gain this foundation and the skills and the tools young is so important. Their brains are developing, their bodies are developing, their personalities, their emotions. It's all developing. And the earlier we help lean in, the better outcome for our children. We are preparing them to be young adults and enter the world. And so I also caution, yes, lean in and don't just brush it off like, oh, boys will be boys, or, oh, well, this is just typical for my preteen or my teen. Really have eyes wide open, heart wide open, and be watching. So I think that's a great lead in.
And I want to ask a follow-up question
Yes,
already.
please.
Because as things have come up with different of my children, we have 5. Sometimes I'll say, is it better to have someone help and intervene? But also I don't want my child to feel like something's wrong with them or they're going to a therapist. And obviously we live in a day and age, thankfully, where we're so much more open to all of these things. But this is something I've really been curious about. Like, where would you say, is there a time or a cutoff where it's like, it's actually less helpful, or maybe the type of discussion or how you approach it?
Yes.
What would you recommend there for a parent who's listening and saying, I don't know, maybe this is the time to step in, but am I going to do more harm than good?
2 points that I always talk with parents about is, first and foremost, when parents contact me professionally, they're often like, I want to get my teenager in. I want to get my young adult in. I want to get my preteen in to talk with you. And actually, that's not the model of my practice. In my practice, my personal practice, Parent Vision, like that says it right there. I first work with parents. I think it's first and foremost for me, where my passion and my skill set lies especially, is working with parents on their approaches, what they're seeing, getting their insights and their information, really validating pieces and helping them tweak and individualize specific rhythms and parenting styles and routines in their home. Like, that's where we start. And then often the parents who are like, I just want you to talk with my child, they're like, oh, we are now having these conversations parent to child, or parent to parent, and then parent to child, or parent to family. And that's all that is needed. And so that's really exciting. And then there are times when, once the parents and I have like that foundation where we're all on the same page, that I do meet with their teenager and we just talk about skills and tools and hopefully help them. And less of like needing to like rehash the past, but more like, here's where we are and like, what can we do? To me, that feels like a healthy way to move forward with needed skills for that time. And then the second thing that I would say is, I tell parents that my measure of when we need to intervene is when that child's having relational conflict. So that could be relational conflict with themselves, like just negative self-talk and like a negative view of themselves, or there's becoming increasingly difficult tension between child parent or child sibling or child friends. So relationally, when you're looking and it seems like, oh, relationships are struggling now, then I'm like, okay, it's time to intervene now.
Okay.
Because, and that could be, like I said, self, parent, child, peer, or sibling. Like, that is a really important measuring stick, because when those relationships start to be impacted, then we're like, okay, we can step in and do something here. Let's really parse this out and what's happening here.
So good. I think that's really helpful for parents listening, just like, because you've only parented your own kids. And so to say, it's hard for me to compare that to any other parent's experience, because I haven't lived in their house. I haven't seen what goes on behind closed doors. So I love starting with that. And I'm excited to then dive into some of the things that you're seeing right now and what you do recommend in those situations, and give just, we talked about this before the episode, just get to the meat and give as much as we can give in this episode, because we all are doing it for the first time. And even if you've had older kids, the world is changing so rapidly, and every child is different, obviously, but even the world is changing so rapidly that the tools and the things that are out there that they may be experiencing are different every few years. So it's really like, we live in an interesting time to be a parent, and we all want to be on our game, and it takes a lot of effort and insight and all the help we can get, which is why you are here today. Let's start with just telling us a little bit about what brought you to this topic. What was a little bit of your story that brought you here and why you're so interested in it?
I think that loneliness is a universal experience. From the beginning of time, loneliness has been experienced. And I would say that most people in their lifetime, whether they're inclined towards loneliness or not, they will have an an experience where they know what loneliness can feel like. And I definitely had that as a young child. I was the only girl, had two brothers. So right there, that is like an isolating factor, right? The oldest and the only girl. Um, so that's a piece. And then I grew up in Texas, in a tiny town in Texas, right outside of Houston. So it didn't always feel so tiny, but I was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Bible Belt. And while I was surrounded with incredible Christian friends of all faiths, and that was like so connecting for me. We are a peculiar people is a phrase that is often used towards our church and members of our church, and I felt that. I that felt rather lonely. In our family, in my family dynamic and my family of origin, my mother is chronically ill, and I have a brother who had chronic illness, and that also felt heavy and lonely, and that like people might know that my mother had a stroke, but they don't know what it feels like to be carrying that, as a young girl, as a daughter, as a sister. So that felt lonely. It separated me. I also was a high achiever, and I know that sounds funny as a separator, but I participated in a lot of things. And so I was always on the outs with some group that I was a part of, right? I wasn't always really a part of them because I was an athlete, but I was also a musician, and I was also in academics, and I was also on student council. Like all of these pieces, like I loved participating and being a part of, but I wasn't just with them.
Yeah.
So I was always on the outs, right?
And you're kind of an insider, but not with the insiders.
That's right.
Yeah.
And even with my church friends, like I was participating, and like, even though we were a small group of Latter-day Saint youth with early morning seminary, and we had these experiences together, I was also like involved in school. And so I was on the outs with them.
Yeah.
And so there were always pieces. And I think that that's one point I love to bring out to not just teenagers and young adults, but adults. Like we can think that someone is surrounded by a lot of people and they're really busy and involved. And we can think that that person would never be lonely. And often those people are the loneliest. And that was definitely my experience. And so for certain, and there were mental health and addiction struggles with one of my brothers, which also isolated me. And it wasn't my story to share. And so the loneliness was great. And I was just with a group of elementary school children giving an assembly on how they can help lower loneliness and create belonging. And I told them, I think that this one story I'm going to share was like a precipitous of why I now go talk to children, teenagers, young adults, grown adults, and parents about helping to lower loneliness, to end loneliness. I don't think we can say that. I think it is a part of our mortal experience, and we need to have that experience. Our Savior, Jesus Christ, he experienced tremendous loneliness. And I'll talk more about that. But this like key story that I think we each have like key turning point stories was in 5th grade. I was in Miss Baker's class, and two girls came up to me in the morning and said, "We want to walk around the track with you at recess." And like, that was a big deal. And I was so excited because I really wanted to be friends with these girls. And I was like, they want to be friends with me. So it's like counting down the minutes, and I hurried out to the playground and I spotted them and I sprinted over. And as we're rounding the first bend, and getting to the back straight away, my heart sinks to the bottom of my stomach and my smile vanishes because they didn't want to get to know me. They wanted to give me the list of all the things they didn't like about me. And I don't know why I didn't run away and find Stephanie, who loved me with all my quirks and flaws. And like, I don't know why I didn't, but I was like frozen in like a trance, like walking state.
Yeah.
And I just stayed. And the conversation went from like my personality and things they didn't like about my personality to like physical traits, like my stringy hair and the gap in my front teeth and just all of the things. And I remember going back in and faking that I had a migraine headache, which wasn't hard to do because I had suffered with migraines since I was 4. So my Aunt Jenny comes and picks me up from school because my parents are out of town. She can tell that I'm not really physically sick. And she's like, Scharman, can you tell me what's going on? And I just pour out because I trusted my Aunt Jenny and I knew she loved me and she was a safe place for me. So I told her exactly what had happened. And that brings me to a really important point for our youth and our young adults right now. Like we call it an epidemic of loneliness right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we say never before in the history of the world has there been such intense loneliness. And that is true. And for our youth and young adults, they have never before had more ability to connect digitally, right? Through those means, but they have never been lonelier. And they have never spent more time with same age peers than any other generation on the planet. That is because, like when I was growing up, if my mom said, let's go to the grocery store, I was like all in. I didn't want to be bored at home. I was like, let's go, right? I would go run her errands with her. Like my kids are like, no thanks, Mom. Like, I don't want to go run your errands because they can, even if they're at home, like not physically hanging out with friends, they can connect. Like whether it's through a VR headset or, a video game or texting or FaceTiming or social media platforms, like they can connect. And that is what youth are doing now. That's how they're connecting. So they're not having the interaction with older generations. And this right now is increasing loneliness for our youth and young adults.
So if the answer was just being with more people than their own age or connecting digitally would equal connection, then we should be fine right now.
Right.
But those must not be the things that these kids need. So what do they need?
They need in-person connection.
Okay.
Right. And we can say that to them, but we've got to help teach them the why behind it. They do need peer-to-peer connection. But what is especially missing from them right now is the older generation connection. They need trusted adults in their lives. That's what they need. And they're missing that right now.
So we connected on this also before, that we both were drawn to working at a school at a time when our kids were there. And I kind of thought, okay, coming in, here's the things I'm hoping to get out of it as far as like in the school, right? Not me even personally. And really thought the actual connection to the school, I don't need. I have friends. I have my husband. We have a couple friends who I love and adore. Like we actually feel like we're in a really good spot here in Utah. And now I'm like obsessed with these teachers at the school, some of the most incredible humans. And, as an aside, anyone who teaches, I have such a love for teachers and what goes into it. What I give for teachers' gifts is very different than before I was at the school,
Right.
because you just see they pour their hearts out. And then I was always a little scared of teenagers, to be honest, but I also was scared of adults as a teenager. Like just that there was a for sure disconnect for me. Like, why would they want me to talk to them or why? And how do I even make it authentic instead of like a really awkward joke that they're uncomfortable with? And frankly, I'm uncomfortable at the same time too. And over the last few years, it has been one of the richest parts of my life, seeing these kids at the school that I respect and love and admire and love when I see them. And it went from I should, because I'm a co-director of a school, know their names and make them feel good, to I can't wait to see these little humans,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're 4 or 14. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's the best, and they are the best. But it wasn't intuitive. It wasn't easy, not both when I was in those shoes or where I'm at now.
Right.
I would love to hear your recommendation of how we can get to a spot that feels authentic and vulnerable and is mutually beneficial, because I do think older people need younger people too.
Oh,
So how
you
do
are
we get
so
there?
right. Like, I like to teach, we need all seasons. Like, 4 seasons, we need 4 seasons to be balanced. Where I grew up, it was just hot all the time. There was no balance in the seasons, right? I love Utah and the 4 seasons. There's balance. And the same is true. It even says so in the scriptures. And in Ecclesiastes, it talks about to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, right? And we need all seasons. So the youngest spring, they need summer and fall and winter. And fall needs winter.
I love this
and
so
winter
much.
needs spring,
Yes.
right? Like aging grandparents and great grandparents, they need those great grandbabies. They need those grandchildren. They need to feel relevant. They need them. So I love to teach it from both angles. Like when I'm talking to an adult, I say, can you be someone's 5, one of their 5?
Tell us this concept. I've heard you talk about this and I'm obsessed with it. What is this? What does this mean? What are these 5?
All right. So I tell adults that children need them, and I tell children that they need adults. And there is research behind this. And I like to call it the trusted 5. So 4 years ago, there was a research study done across the United States of interfaith Christian religions, like all different interfaith, so all different congregations. And youth were studied from the age of 11 all the way up to 25. So like in our faith, we call that the rising generation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a large span. And they asked, first of all, these youth, how many trusted adults do you have in your life? And they could like rank. It was like a sliding scale. So some said 0. And it seemed to be that when they said 5 or more, there was a difference in how they viewed themselves, how they viewed the stressors in their lives. And so I now call that the trusted 5. And I ask youth, will you go find your trusted 5? Can you make a list of your trusted 5 or more right now? And if you can't, let's talk about how you can go find your 5. And I say to adults, can you be one of someone's 5? And to me, then the generations can connect. And that might look in a neighborhood, on a cul-de-sac, in a congregation, at a school. Adults, can you learn the children's names? Can you look them in the eyes when you're walking in the hallway or when you're sitting next to them in a meeting and ask them what's exciting in their lives right now? And I'll talk more about some of the tools, but I think you might be curious about what in this study these youth were asked, because they were just a couple of measures. So they were asked to rank. First, remember, they were asked how many trusted adults, and they could give the response of the numbers. And then they were asked to rank this. I feel completely alone. And the youth who had 0 trusted adults, 62% of them said that they feel completely alone. And of the youth who had 5 or more, 5% of those youth said that they feel completely alone. Like statistically speaking, that's significant. And we cannot overlook that.
And was that even, what was their question about their friend groups or how many like youth that they were connected to?
This is just asking about adults.
Okay.
The end adults.
Amazing.
So
good.
the next question they were asked, or statement they were asked to rank, I feel as if no one understands me. 70%. Those who had zero trusted adults, 70% of them, that felt true to them. And for those who had 5 or more, it dropped down to 24%. So no one understands me, like feeling seen, loved, understood, like knowing that you have 5 or more adults who love you, care about you, see you, are interested in you. What an impact that makes on your developing life.
It's huge. And from a parent perspective, like that is what we want.
I need my kids to have 5. I'm not enough. I can be everything I can try to be, and I will never be enough. I need them.
And in such a positive way that takes the pressure off parents. Like, don't think it's all up to you. Focus your time and energy somewhere else. If it's like, I have to be there everything and you feel like you're coming up short, well, you will. So take the pressure off you and go see who you can rally that's going to connect with your kids, or put them in situations where there's great adults there
that
will take an interest in your child.
And I love that you're saying great situations, because I will always, always give the caveat warning that we do not want our youth to spend one-on-one alone time, right? With an
we're
adult,
all
like,
smart enough in this generation
That's
to say,
exactly right.
Bad idea.
Bad idea.
Let's do it in the right way.
We need to do it in the right way.
Yeah.
And also, we want to involve extended family members. We want to involve teachers. We want to involve coaches in a group setting, right? Like, they can have such an important impact, but we have to be really wise. So I always will give that. I'll share, there are only 2 more statements that they were asked to measure. And that is, I feel left out. And 59% for those who had zero trusted adult feel left out. Like, that's loneliness, right?
Yeah.
And for those who had the 5 or more, 21%. And the last statement was, I feel stressed and overwhelmed. Think about the anxious generation. Think about anxiety. So that went from 73% down to 39%. So it's not like the trusted adults made all of the hard loneliness, stress, overwhelm go away, but they certainly are more capable. And I think what lends itself to that is that an older mentor in our lives, think about like your own life, an older mentor helps give us perspective.
Yep.
Like, this feeling that you're feeling right now will not last forever. Or this chapter, or this season, or this experience, like, they help us put it into context and perspective. And it feels less overwhelming when they can do that.
One of my first guests on the podcast was my granny, who's 93.
I love this.
It's so good. It's so good. And like, people love this episode. And a big part of that is we come on as women and we want to talk together, but we're in the same thing. Like, sometimes you need your peers because you need to say, I need someone who gets what I'm going through and who can remember it. But on the flip side, I need someone to say, you won't remember this.
Right.
I need to hear both validation that this one thing I'm going through is so hard. And then also someone to say, and it's just, when you zoom out, it's a little bump in the road of life and you're going to be just fine. I need both. And I've never heard the concept of the seasons put in that way. And it's really an empowering thought for me to think about, because I love things when I have a guest on where there's an action I can take from it. And when those are listening in, can also have an action. And if you're lonely and you're an adult, there's an action I can take. How can I connect with someone in their winter years? I need their perspective. I need maybe someone who isn't as caught up in the rush of life, who maybe has time in an unhurried way for me. And if I don't have any connection with the spring, or I need someone in all of those, and some young children too. And what a beautiful thing is an aside, just thinking about the congregations we belong to, where we have this lay ministry, and sometimes we're with some and sometimes we're with another. And a lot of times we feel out of our comfort zone, but it forces us in places where the world today isn't going to force us, because we really can find people like us in age groups similar to us, struggling with the same thing or enjoying the same things as us. All of us can, because that's how neighborhoods are set up often.
That's right.
And that's how social experiences are set up. But to be in a church and a congregation that says, it's not because you have the same amount of money, so you're both paying the same type of pastor, or it's not because you all come for the same women's group. It's like, I teach right now in the women's group. It's my first Sunday a couple Sundays ago. And I have these beautiful comments from women, again, who have that perspective and who can just champion you in a way that's so different.
That's right.
And then, and all sorts of women, some who I need to take from and some whom I can give to. And it's beautiful to find that, but you can find that in other places, or find a church. A church might be something you look for to say,
that's right.
I don't know where else I'm going to find this. I'm going to start going to church just for that.
Find your community.
Great. Find
That's
your
right.
Community.
That's exactly right. And I get very excited in our faith when people are looking, because it's lay and it's volunteer, like not necessarily like volunteer, you raise your hand, but you're asked.
Someone volunteers you, right? And then you choose if you feel good about it or not.
That's exactly right. I get very excited when they very wisely draw in women or men from a variety of seasons, because I know that in that, with the children or the youth or the adults, that there is going to be a broad perspective given of people who have lived that experience, who are living it, who can, and the mentoring and the love that happens. I get very excited about that. I think there's one phrase that I would eliminate from us as adults that we tend to say, and it's just a pat phrase, and it's been there, done that. I think that when we say that to our children or to someone who's younger or who's someone we've already gone through that, and we say that to them, it's so dismissive. But I am so grateful for the mentors in my life who, like, they have done everything that I am crying, pouring my heart out to them about, right? They have lived it, but they can just sit with me in it. And they maybe could say, oh, I remember when.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that is like a very supportive phrase that helps me feel less lonely. And I would say that that's what, like, we can apply this to youth, but as adults, grown adults, we can find our trusted five too. Like my grandmothers, my aunties were, my aunties are part of my trusted adults. And we can find friends who are part of our trusted five.
I think knowing that, again, the world where we live at a different time where it's really easy to connect digitally. Mm-hmm. It's also really easy to find entertainment and numb that we even need to connect. Mm-hmm. So I think it's wise for us to say, or to just have the assumption that other people might be struggling with that too. Mm-hmm. And if we reach out, there might be a good chance that they would welcome being asked to be a mentor. Now, not everybody is, especially if you go to someone who mentors like 1,000 people, might not be the right person to ask. Like, there might be a chance that they don't know how to reach out and offer mentoring.
It's so true.
So be the one to take that first step and say, I am looking for a mentor. Or to a younger child, like, you know what, I've done some similar things as you. If you ever want to chat about it, and they're friends with your daughter, come over, let's all make cookies together, set up a situation, but offer some of those things or ask for some of those things. Because I don't know many people who would say that I'm so comfortable in my role as a mentor, as a mentee. I think we all need to practice. So maybe be the one to reach out first.
Yeah, I love that. And there are ways that it can come about naturally, right?
Can you teach us some of those? I actually would love that. I don't feel like that was something, I feel like I would love to learn this, and I know I'm not the only one listening in who feels this way.
I'll share one thing and then I'll give a couple of like tools. So in our family, it's become a tradition to have Monday lunches where I just open my home and I just make a lot of food. And they rush over from the high school. I know exactly, like 12:17 is when they're going to start rolling in. And I know that they all have to be hitting the road by 12:42 or they're going to be tardy. And I tease them about it. And right now, actually, we just blew the back wall of our home out because we don't have a big enough gathering space and it wasn't comfortable. And we wanted these teenagers to feel comfortable that we could pop up not just one folding table with chairs, but maybe 2 or 3, because the group has grown over the last several years where anyone is welcome and anyone can come. And as we have tried to create that space, naturally, those kids feel more and more and more comfortable. And so one night last month, there was a group of 6 teenage boys. My youngest son is a junior. My husband and I had been watching like a basketball game from March Madness, and we were like in sweats and pajamas, and they like walk in and they all sit around and we turn the game off and they just want to talk. And they just had questions upon questions. And then it hits midnight. And my husband, Matt, is like, okay, guys, I think it's time for everyone to go home and go to sleep. And they're like, wait, one more question, 30 minutes later. Right. And I hope that they just have been welcomed in. They know the pantry is open to them, even if sometimes they eat an ingredient that I needed for Sunday dessert. I hope that we've just created a space where they feel like they belong so that they feel comfortable coming in and asking the questions.
Okay, 2 things I'm going to follow up with this story.
Yeah.
First, I think just likening this to yourself if you're listening in.
Yeah.
You have a teenager. So Monday lunches are exactly the phase he's in. He needs lunch. He has other kids who need lunches. It works for you guys. You may not have teenagers if you're listening, but what do you have?
Right.
The thought, I have a 13-year-old. She doesn't drive. No one's coming home yet.
Right.
But one thing I tried once that I want to do more of is I have these darling nieces who I'm obsessed with, and they like to craft and they like to hang out. Having them over for a little crafternoon, they feel like $1 million and they make me feel like $1 million, you know?
Yes.
So what is the phase of life? And then I have some other girls that like crafting it, my daughters, who can help set some of that up. So it's like us joining together while I have an opportunity. So one, if it's like, oh, I don't have a teenager or I don't have a kid in high school, it doesn't matter. The stories help you liken it to yourself.
Make it authentic to you, to your age and stage and what feels good and right for you.
Yep.
Right.
And that serves your own family.
That's right.
Because if it's only serving all these other kids you're mentoring and your kids are left out, you'll get resentful. It's not going to be normal and natural. It's not going to feel authentic.
That's right.
So easy takeaway right there. Just turn it on yourself and say, okay, what is my Monday lunch? What does that look like?
That's right.
And even if you're in your winter stages of life, there's people who need you in the winter stages of life who are feeling lonely that you could open your house. You could do Monday lunches for those. And I've heard of so many great stories in those seasons. The question I want to then follow this up with, if you didn't come from a home where that was modeled, where you saw parents connecting so well, and my parents are amazing, so I wouldn't put them in this category, but definitely I felt in this category before working at the school and feeling like I'm a little bit better now. Mm-hmm. What takes it from a Monday lunch to them showing up and feeling like comfortable asking you those questions? What does it look like when your son and his buddies come over?
Yeah.
How are you present, not present?
Okay. So 2 tips I love to teach at any age. One is research shows that when we say hello within the first 15 seconds, it's less awkward. And I found myself at first with Monday lunches because we did this when we had other children at home too, right? And now he's just the only one. So like we've done this over process of time. And at first, I don't think I was great at it. I just was like the mom who made a lot of food, and I was just like kind of in the background, refilling like the water jugs when they ran out, that kind of thing. But I started learning their names, but I started pushing myself within the first 15 seconds of being in proximity to look them in the eyes and say hello. And am trying so hard to always know their name. So say hello with their name, and then like they literally feel seen. And so it's a large crowd of boys with a few girls. Those boys will now come up and give me a hug, where before they were like on the opposite side of the room, barely making eye contact. So saying hello. Admittedly, I forget names sometimes, and then I have to ask my son, "Wait, who is this?" and and learning their names. Like that's so important. And then all of a sudden they do, "Oh, Scharman knows who I am. Like she cares. Like she knows if I show up." Or I'll make a comment like, "I missed you. You haven't been here for the last couple of weeks." "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I had dance practice or I had this." And so I love that. The second thing that I love to talk about is we have to get rid of autopilot questions. And there's actually science behind this. When we ask an autopilot question like, "How are you?" Like if I were just to say, "Lizzy, how are you?" You'd probably say,
Great, fine. Anything else is awkward. You didn't really want to know a story about good or bad. It's just fine. Yeah.
it's
So an
just
acceptable response.
exactly. And that's just an autopilot question. Or how's your day going?
Fine.
Right. Autopilot questions. They don't cause us to think, like stop and think. And also there's an implication in there that it's just a nicety. It's almost just like saying hi. It's just like what we say, but you don't really care to know. Right. And so there are actual dopamine questions. And the way I tell children this, I'm like, we want to get rid of autopilot questions. We want to ask real questions, questions that help us think. Because when you're asked a question that causes you to think, dopamine is released from your brain, and dopamine helps calm us. It also helps excite us. It's the same chemical, but it does the same thing. But it literally is a connecting chemical, right? And so with that, when we ask questions like, "What's the most exciting thing that's happened to you this week? What is one thing you're looking forward to this weekend?" I love to ask teenagers in my kitchen this question. "If you could go on an all expense paid vacation this weekend, anywhere in the world, where would you go?" Like asking questions. I have a list, a long list. And every time I hear a good question or someone like on my run on Monday, one of my running partners asked the three of us in the group who were there that day, "What was your first job?" I want to hear everyone's first job. And for the whole 6 miles, we are like talking about like our job history. It was so connecting. It was so fun. I'm like, "Laura, that is the best question. It's going on my list." And I went home and
So
typed
good.
it up on my list. So I tell teenagers, young adults, find your 5 go-to questions. One of my son-in-laws is so good at this. He joined our family 5 years ago, and I've watched him talk to extended family members who he does not know them. Like he will just ask like the best dopamine questions, and what happens is a little mental post-it note is created, and that person is like, when I'm around Hayden, I feel good because he asks me questions about myself. He's genuinely interested. And I tell my kids, to be interesting, you need to be interested.
So good.
We have to be interested in one another, and we want people in our lives to feel that we're interested. And then natural connections are formed. Natural connections.
So good. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. How would you feel about sharing that list?
Oh, absolutely. I'll share it.
Would you?
I'd love to share it.
Okay, we're going to design it up.
Okay.
As with whatever time we
Love
have.
it.
Put your name on it.
Love it.
And then offer that as a download.
Let's
in this
do
episode.
it. Let's
Is that
do
okay?
it. Yes. And there are like level 1.
Okay.
Like think of like, it's not like for dating, but think about like for dating. Like level 1 is like a first date. Like you're getting to know that person. Level 2, like you've hung out a little bit and you want to like get to know them more. And then like level 3, like you've been friends or you've known them for a while, but you really want to understand like something more about them.
So good.
Okay, we'll do it. I'm so excited.
It's going to be such a great tool.
Yes.
As a funny aside, I remember specifically when I was a teenager, the moment when I realized you could ask an adult a question. Right. Before I just felt like I'm just kind of held captive here for as long as they have questions and I don't know what they're going to ask next and all the pressure is on me. And I just asked the question and realized I could have taken the pressure off this entire time. But
Yeah.
so for whether you're an adult hearing this and you still don't feel like this is in your sweet spot, or maybe to ask kids, it's not in your sweet spot, or pass this on to your child, like you have your good 5 questions that you can ask. It takes the pressure off of meeting people and feeling like it's all on you. And also allows you to connect with them because you, like you said, with that son-in-law, that's how people feel connected is you show interest.
That's exactly right.
So good.
My second to join our family, son-in-law, who will be joining our family officially in June, he has done an incredibly beautiful job of this with my parents. Like from the time he started dating our daughter, he would immediately go up to them and make sure, like, put an arm around them and like ask them something about them. Well, like he won grandparents' hearts over like immediately because they felt like they were connected and then they were so excited to follow that journey. So it's not just on the adults. And I love that. And I love teaching children and youth that.
And a good thing, I'm like, our time has flown by and I'm so sad. I could ask you a million things. I think we needed a part 2. But I love wrapping up with that as you're trying to be one of those trusted 5, as you're trying to say, what can I do in the loneliness in my own neighborhood or even in my own family with my own kids? Maybe you feel distant from them, using these tools and using that one specifically to show interest in other people. If you want a mentor, probably don't just reach out and tell them all about yourself. If they don't mentor a lot of people and you come with genuine interest in them, their heart's going to turn to you. They're going to feel like, wow, who is this child and why are they so interesting? And I wonder how I can help them. Like that's going to come to their minds just from you taking interest in them. And maybe that's the cool thing about how God created us all, that as we seek to love others and reach out to others, it comes back in the ways we all need it in every season of our life.
That's right. God created us for connection. He did. One of my favorite scriptures is in Ephesians 4:9-10. And it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have an abundant life. For if they fall, the one will lift up her fellow. But woe, or it is hard for her that is alone when she falleth. God created us for connection. Connection with Him and connection with each other. Think of the 2 great commandments. That's what He created us for. And Christ connects. And maybe in another conversation, we can talk about how Satan separates.
So good.
Christ is the great connector. And that's what we were made for.
And you can be sure that if you're feeling isolated and disconnected, that's not the life God has intended for you or what He wants for you.
No.
So reach out, find your people, be other people's people, connect more with Scharman in all the ways and learn from what she's done in her writing. And it's so fun. I think the tide is going to turn because we're all waking up to the fact that like, ooh, an experiment was kind of run on us with all the education, with all the entertainment and with all the digital connection. And I think we're waking up to the fact that like, we're actually not okay with this. And people are going to flip phones and so we're hungry for this right now. So excited for everyone to hear this episode and learn from you. I have one question to end that I'd love to ask at the end.
Okay.
I hope it's a dopamine question. I'm going to have to ask you if it is, because then no wonder I feel so connected.
I can put it on the list, Lizzy.
You put it on the list. What do you hope that your legacy is in your life?
Oh, such a dopamine question.
Level 3, probably. I don't know if I asked that at the grocery store.
Oh, my greatest passion is to help create belonging. And I'm so grateful that I can do that professionally. I can do that in interfaith work, and I can do that in my own faith. And that is what I hope. I hope that I can model it, I can teach it, but that I tell my children, let me teach it to you and then you go do it better. But it's what's meant so much to me, and it's been part of my journey to help lower loneliness and help create belonging.
So beautiful. Thank you for teaching us about that today.
You're so welcome. Thanks for inviting me. It's such an honor. I have learned so much from you and your guests, and you really are a gifted interviewer. And it's an honor to be with you.
You're sweet. Thank you. If this episode moved you, take 10 seconds right now and go leave a review on the podcast. It helps more people find these conversations, and it tells the algorithm we need more content like this, because connection is healing, and your voice, just like your presence, matters more than you know.